Okay, so tip number one would be to ask as many questions as you can. Me and the team that I was working with, we emailed PRS, the people we were talking to a lot, we called them a lot, we showed them our drafts of our funding bid, got feedback, and that really helped us secure the bid. Tip number two would be to get a team to help you, so whether that's your manager, your friend, your mum, your dad, if you've got anybody that's ever wrote a funding bid before in your family, get them to help. It always helps to have experience. And tip number three would be to make sure that you stay specific to the questions that are asked. So if they ask for bullet points on something, sometimes they'll ask a question within a question, so make sure you just read the requirements and just make sure that you tick all the boxes.
My top 3 tips for applying for funding is to make sure that you identify the fund that's right for you. So do your research, look into what's out there, and make sure that funding is right for what you're doing and who you are as a music creator, because you don't want to waste your time applying for something that's for composers when you are a DJ and that kind of thing. So I'd say, yeah, do your research, make sure it's right for you. Make sure that you've really thought about what you want to do and where it's going to take you next. Funders are really interested in you as a kind of music creator and making your career the most sustainable it can be. So making sure it's the right time for you to do something and that you can really get that across in your application. My third tip would be funding applications are hard, so make sure that you allow enough time around it. Make sure that you kind of put enough time into getting into the detail, writing it out properly, if you can, getting someone to check it, and also not beating yourself up that you can't do it straight away. So in allowing that time, you allow that space in order to kind of get it right and make sure you're not rushing and it's not stressful. So yeah, do your research, make sure it's right for you, make sure it's going to take you to the right place and allow enough time to get it in and get it done. And then do something nice after you've finished.
Okay, I would say number one is knowing exactly what it is that you want to do. Quite often what happens is we'll get applications that come in, or we'll have conversations with people about applying for funding when they just know they want money, but they don't know what for. And that is we'll know that, we'll see that in an application. So the number one tip is basically know exactly what it is that you want to do. Start at the end, know what it is that you want to produce, and then work your way backwards to work out how you're going to get there. Number two, I would say don't give up if you're not successful first time round. We get an awful lot of people who do come in who've never applied for funding to anybody before. It's really overwhelming. Sometimes people can have issues with the language that we use. They can have issues with the way in which we're asking questions. They can have issues with the system itself. So sometimes in the first application, it can appear it's not as strong as it could be because you've been hung up with all the technicalities of writing the first application. Don't be put off. That is key. And tip number two, there's nothing to stop you reapplying and coming back in. Tip number three would be, as and when you have completed your application form, give it to at least 3 friends to read. If you can have one who is a musician, who works in music as well, that'd be great because you'll get it from a music perspective. 2, if you can get it from somebody who deals with funding. So you might have a friend who's applied for funding before, you might know a local organisation or community group who dealt with funding before. Ask them if they can just read it. And then you might finally, thirdly, ask somebody who knows nothing about anything to do with it. And they will do what we call a sense check. So they'll just read it to see if it actually makes sense and the language that you're using makes sense, or if you're using kind of acronyms and short things that people might not understand. So yeah, tip number 3, get at least 3 people to proofread it before you click submit.
All of our grants are very competitive, and a big reason for a lot of them falling below is purely a lack of detail. So if you're booking a studio, make sure you say who and why and where and how that's going to benefit you. Same for if you're having PR, what PR and why, and how is that going to benefit you? How's it going to ensure that your project is successful? We have a whole flood of schemes for all different levels of career, all different genres, all different types of artists. So make sure you look through each one and find the one that is most suitable for you and your project. And definitely read the brief and make sure that you're answering all of the questions as clearly as you can. When you do apply, part of our applications you have to submit a budget for your project. Don't be afraid to ask for a lot of money or the full amount of money. Things cost what they cost and we expect things to be paid for, especially if you're using other musicians, they should all be paid fairly. So don't say, oh, my friend's going to do this for me on the cheap, I've got this as a favour. Just say, we're using this person because it's the best we can do. And that's going to be way more helpful than just having favours from friends.